Hey guys, how are you all doing? Welcome to today's video of macro tutorial, hangout, whatever. The purpose today is to cover the cover a lot of questions about macros. Oh damn, got feedback. Sorry about that. Um, if you want to, you can drop some questions in the comments about macros. Maybe you have an idea about a macro that you struggle writing, or I don't know, maybe I struggle writing it because I don't know all the macros, or I'm not that perfect with macros, but so far what I want to create worked so far. And yeah, there are multiple ways to get your macro the way you want it to. If it doesn't work, you can just try to figure it out yourself. You can post in the Facebook groups, Grand MA2. You will get an answer, I think, within 1 to 10 minutes. It always worked pretty good. Um, yeah, that's about it. You can also, for the very beginners, you can also if you want to figure out how macros work, or if you want to use macros, there is a way to load predefined macros. So if you click on a empty macro pool, if you're on PC, you can do a right click, and if you're on an actual console, it is edit, and then you click the empty macro pool. Then on the right side you can click load predefine, and then there are a bunch of predefined macros from MA2 itself, which I'm using some of them, but I prefer to write them myself, so I know exactly what they're doing, and if something doesn't work, I know how to troubleshoot it. So for example, if you take like an easy one, the align, because yeah, if you want to have a line the to the left, you click it once, and then to the right you click it twice, and then a third time for, I think, inwards. Yeah, and then a fourth time for outwards. uh, I'm a bit lazy, so I just create macros for that. So I have an align. I can show you where I have them. Tools. So I have like my own layout view. Um, Instead of clicking a line 4 times or 5 times, I just go in here. Just works. Easy. Goo9. Did you recover from last night? Them making fun of your car. Uh, yes, of course I recovered. My car is actually not that bad as Collins said. It's a good car, and it's my company's car, so I drive it every day. Um, yeah, it has 350 horsepower, so that's more than enough for a daily drive or a company car. And Collins probably only drives his car on Sundays, but he has way more horsepower. Alright, so let's go to some examples about macros, why you would need them, uh, or how it saves you programming time. For example, I have a record macro, which is just one line. It's pretty easy, but instead of always trying to remember or figuring out how to get the record command, because I don't know it. I just put in record add. So the way macros work with the add is, for example, if you wanna have a macro to store something. So let's get some action buttons over here. So if you want to have a macro that you just click that stores your current selection or whatever you have active, you have a way of doing it like this. I think that works. So if we have Fixture through add, and if you click the macro now, because it's only store, it will store on your selected executor. So if you select a different executor, you store it on a different executor. But that's not always the case as you want it to. So you can go store add. So the add basically just pulls up the store command, and then you can see it down here. It pops up, and now you can click whatever, and it will store it. So that works for also for presets. So anything you can store, you can use that macro for, and then just click a pool item, a preset, an executor, a sequence, whatever. So let's delete those again. Whoop. And what else you can do with macros, which I'm using basically all the time to, for example, get my my color, my groups, so my fixture types to colors. I kind of made that few, so I store a group in here, which color 1 is my first group, which contains all my fixtures, and then I go by fixture type, and then if I only have like 3 fixture types, I only use color 2, 3, and 4. And then I can use color 5, 6 for odd even. Then I can use color 7, 8, 9 for whatever. So I have like my color layer view, which looks like that. I have a lot of options, which most of the time I never use, but if I need it, I have it. And I wrote a macro to, so I'm able to just take a group, like let's take my spikies. So I take my spikies, I store them in here, and then if I run the macro, what it did is all of that. So it's a looping macro, and what it does, it just goes through. Where is it? There it is. So it selects the group that is stored above the macro, and it takes the group, puts it at preset 1, and then it stores it in sequence wherever it is now, I don't know, and then Q1, and then it adds a var or a number +1, and then everything that is 1 before turns to 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then 6. And the macro is just it looks like that. So I'll just explain probably all the lines. So the first line is command line response, so that will pull up my command line on screen 2. I just like to see a little bit of feedback. And then in order to turn it off again at the end of the macro, obviously I put menu off, command line response. And then in line 2 I go blind edit on, which brings me into my blind editor. So blind is blinking now. There's a little explanation to blind, so you can we are now in the main program in MA, which everything I do now it will output to the stage. And then what we can do also is click blind one time. That will allow me to program stuff that I can see on the console but not on the stage. So it will just cut the output of my programmer. And then you have a second programmer. So basically let's go back. If I program something in here, so I select my my lights, put them on full, and now if I go into blind mode, you won't see that anymore, so it cuts the output. So if I clear out in blind, it also clears out in my normal programmer. So blind is just cutting your output, I think. Yeah, it is. And then you can hold down blind, which gives you, if I put up the command line, blind edit is on. So now we're in blind edit. I can take a group, I can put it on full dimmer, I can put it on a tilt value, and then I go out of my blind editor. As you can see, nothing was selected. So now I can do, like, I put pawn over here, I put that on center, I active every attribute. And now I can go into blind editor, and only dimmer and position, as we did before, is active now. So if I clear out my blind editor and I go back to my main programmer, it still has all the values I had when I was in my main programmer. So that knowing that, it's a pretty nice way to do a little bit more than just using the normal blind mode. So once I figured that out, I had a little bit more possibilities. Probably don't use it to the extent it is made for, but yeah, it's still pretty nice. You can use it as a second programmer and keep your stuff in there. So yeah, that was blind edit. So in the macro I just put in blind edit on, which doesn't matter what my blind edit is at the moment, it will be on. So if it's off, it will be on. If it's on, it stays on. If I only use blind edit, it will just toggle blind edit. So it's gonna be if it's on, it's gonna be off. If it's off, it's gonna be on. So in order to always make sure that I'm going into the blind editor, I use on after it, and at the end of the macro I use off, just to make sure if I accidentally have blind edit on, it will stay on. So now all the kind of magic happens now. So in line 3 I create a variable which is called count. That is the variable we will talk later when we go to line 11. I put it on 0. You can do it a little bit different, because that was like one of the first times I tried to write a looping macro, so now I do it differently. And then in the 4th line I also create a variable which is called col loop. That equals 16 y16, because it is exactly how many colors I have. So it makes sure the macro loops itself 16 times. So that's the variable. That's a variable that will stay on 16, so it doesn't change when the macro goes again or loops itself. And then I created in line 5 a set variable for for my sequence. The sequence I need it to be stored in, which is 602. Then that's also a variable that will always stay in that macro on 602, because yeah, I want everything in, or all that particular fixture type I want only in sequence 602. And then in the 6th line I'm starting with my first add var. Add var means it puts or it I don't know the English word. It just puts it +1, the number I'm having in the when I first created it. So now it's, when I created it, it was on 0, and I'm adding 1 to it, so it will just go 0 + 1. You can also do, like, if you use names. So if you have like if you have like whatever macro as a set var, and then you always want it to label something macro, and then add something to it that is a number or an extension of the name that is kind of dynamic, then you can go add var whatever macro color blah blah blah, and then it will just change the variable to macro color. I'm using that in my macro 666 down here, which allows me to, when I click it, tell me exactly how many fixtures I have selected. And what it does is the name, the variable is always fixtures minus, and then it will just add the number to it. So in that case, it will tell me when I click it how many fixtures I have selected. I will pull up that macro a bit later. It's pretty nice to have that macro, so I always kind of able to calculate or divide my fixture count or whatever, just to do some mathematical stuff. Alright, so next one is line 7. By the way, if someone needs a little bit better explanation on something, please let me know in the chat. Then I will go a little bit deeper into it, because I don't know on what extent people are with their knowledge. So yeah, just write it in the chat and I can slow it down. Alright, line 7 is just a clear all, which yeah, starts off with a clear programmer, which in this case it will always clear. It's not needed anymore, but I'll just keep it that way. And then line 8, it will go to group 5, which is that group over here, right above the macro. And then it will put it at preset 4, which 4 is color, as you can see over here. And then it use 4 point $ count, which is my variable for the count, because we're starting at 1. It's already 1 because we added a var 1 to it. And now in the next line, so basically what it reads out is group 5 at preset 4.1 the first time when a macro fires. In the 9th queue, it will store the sequence in $ sequence, so that will be 602. And then Q also $ count which is the same number as the preset. So preset 1 is in Q1. You can also do that if you want to say like you start at preset 10, but you want to start storing it in Q1. Then you need to create a an extra variable for that, and also add a 1 to the variable. So yeah, then /o, that means it will override whatever you have. You have like different options. You have merge, where it will merge it. Then you have override. You have append, which if you are storing it in Q1, and then in Q2 you use append. I think it's spelled right. I'm not sure. It will just store it as a second queue. So it instead of the MA going to ask you, do you want to override, do you want to merge, do you want to store as second queue, those options will do that in the macro, so you won't get a pop-up. Otherwise you have, because we have 16 colors, it will pop up 16 times, and that's not really a time saver, I think. And then in my in my line 10, it clears all. Again, I think that's too much, but yeah, I keep it that way. In line 11, we have the magic of looping. So I'm using those brackets, or whatever you call them. So I think that are brackets. Yeah, I don't know the English name for that, but you can clearly see what it is. And now I'm using my variable count, which at this moment, the first time it run, is 1 now. And count is smaller than, so it reads out, if count is smaller than color loop, it will trigger this macro, or the line. So count is now 1 and color loop is 16. So if 1 is smaller than 16, obviously we all know a little bit of math, it will run the line. If count is 16 and color loop is 16, the line afterwards will be ignored, and then it will just jump to line 12, 13, and 14, and then the macro is finished. So, and the line is go macro 1.301, which is the current macro we're in. The 1 is, I don't know why it is there. I think I've read it somewhere already, but that's just how MA work. So you have to put the 1 dot before, and then you put your number of the macro or the name of the macro. So it could be, where is it? And then color 1. That will search for every macro that is labeled color 1, which, because it's always sitting where it needs to be, or it never moves the macro, I just keep the number. And then dot 6, which it starts with line 6 again, instead of doing line 1 to 5, because then it wouldn't work. And then it just loops itself 16 times. We can see that if I pull up macro 301. So now that's exactly what we're getting. So if you want to look at the, I put a little bit of a delay in it, or a waiting time, just to see what it does exactly. So now if we pull that up, macro 301, you can see I travel through all the colors. So that's a thing, I think, a pretty good way to save writing a lot of macros or a lot of lines. And the big advantage of doing something like this is now I can say I copy that macro, and instead of rewriting all of it, I just go in here, change my groups to 6 because that's the next group, and I use my sequence and change it to 3, and now it's basically almost the same macro again. Also I need to change it in here, go macro 302, and now I only changed 3 numbers instead of everything we see in here, because if I wouldn't use a variable for it and I use like 0 in 20 different lines, I have to replace the 0 in all those 20 lines, and with variables it works a little bit faster. So now let's go back. So yeah, that's basically how I deal with storing a lot of presets, or keep it as dynamic as possible. Because I can also say, because the marker we see here now is not really dynamic, because it is only storing those 16 presets, and it always stays 16. So I could also say like I write the line group 5 at preset blah blah blah, and store sequence blah 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 q blah blah blah. I could write that 16 times as well and just change the number. I don't want to do that. And I can also say let's copy that macro here. I think we already went from an align macro to pretty, I think it is advanced, I think, because not many people use it. So now we can go and say we want to define how many presets. So we go in here, how many presets. What this does is it gives you a pop-up with this with the question that I'm putting in here. So the whatever I put in here doesn't do anything, and then whatever I input will be set as my variable. So now I can say so if we run it now and we say how many presets, let's go for 2. Yeah, now it just looped itself 2 times. As we can see, it started here. Or no, it started somewhere over here. And it looped itself. So Q2 is the last one, and then it just finishes the last lines. So that's just and you can use all those variables that you create. You can make it this way, so you can say you can always define what sequence you want to store it in. You can also create a variable for your group, and you can also say like you want to start with group 1 and then go to group 2 and then group 3 and then 4 and then 5. Then you just have to create another variable for your group and then add var $ group and then equals 1. You can also put in equals 2, so if you want to have like every second group, so it's yeah, whatever you do. So the one is just adding that number to the existing variable already. So that's pretty nice way to deal with programming in a fast way, or get your show file ready. And then after, I haven't spoken about the rest of the macro. So in line 12, the command is blind edit off. So obviously it will exit the blind editor. In line 13, I delete my variables again, because I don't want to have variables sitting around that I'm not using. So I go set variable $count equals asterisk, I think they're called, twice, and that will delete the variable from the console. Just to, I don't know if it makes a lot of difference if you delete it, but yeah, I just like keeping things clean. And then line 14 is menu off, command line response. So menu is off again, and it will go back to my default. While the macro is running, my screen 2 looks like this, and then after it's done, it will automatically off my menu again. It's a pretty nice trick I found, or I have seen from the Visivik import tool, because they also use command line response. And yeah, instead of always having a command line feedback somewhere in here, like most people or some people have it sitting over here to see, alright, something is working. But yeah, if you have a macro like that, you won't be seeing all the lines, and it's better to just have it on the big screen, and then you can clearly see what it all did. And also, when you did something wrong with macros, which is a very important trick, if your macro doesn't work, it's always good to pull up your command line feedback and then watch what happened. Because sometimes if you misspell something, like, let's just misspell blind edit, and now if you run the macro, obviously it works, but it wasn't in blind mode. And then you can see, if we go all the way up, it will give you an error message. Blind edit on. Error number 1, unknown command. So that's a good way to check, like, alright, have I put in the right command? And then just check it. Like, yeah, I made that mistake many times. I always misspell edit. Apparently, I don't know why. It's an easy word, but I'm dumb sometimes. So yeah, that's a way to troubleshoot your macros. There's also a way, when you get like no error message in your command line feedback, you can also like test all the lines, like test line, and then click through all the lines if it does exactly what you want it to do. So yeah, that's basically the cover of looping macros. Dan commented, I love how easy it is to update this color picker with new groups. Yes. I made it this way because I'm not really a fan of cloning. I don't know why. I tried it. As most of us did, I copied everything from Christian Jackson because I didn't have any clue how to make a startup show file 2 years ago, and I needed one because I got a job to operate. on Drumcode Festival and one former party in Austria. So I needed to build myself a startup file that works and is set up as quick as possible, because yeah, most of the small shows, they don't have, or they don't pay for a lot of programming time. So if you tell someone for a formal party, yeah, you need 2 days to program it, they're like, yeah, but we're not gonna pay that. So yeah, I just made my startup show file. First of all, to have everything exactly always the same, so I already know where all my executors are, what views I have to click to get where I need to go. So yeah, this works pretty good for me now. It took like 2 years to build it, and it's consistently updating. Like yesterday, I updated my position picker, whatever. So there are lots of macros. So my possibility is I can choose my tilt value and my pan value per fixture type. So I scrapped it down to 4 different moving heads. So yeah, I'm not getting those stages yet where you have, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 different moving lights. So I just have 4 now, and then I have an all. So now I can say, like, in my fixture type 1 for my movers, I can tell the what is it? Yeah, tilt preset, then my pan preset, then I also have an all, so that contains tilt and pan values. So for example, if I wanna point all the lights to the DJ, or if I wanna fan them out in a nice way where I need to fan out the tilt and the pan, and those are just called special 1 to 12, and I can still label them. And then I also have possibilities to add a delay sweep to that fixture type, and then over here I can also say like a delay on all of them. And then I also have move all, and next to it I have my my movement effects, and then on my fader bank I can control the size of it. There's a pretty nice tutorial from Christian Jackson to have like an inverted fader. So if you wanna check that out, go search it at Christian Jackson's YouTube channel. So yeah, back to macros. You guys have any questions so far, or any ideas? We can also create some macros on the way. Otherwise, I'm just showing you a few of my macros, what I'm using, or what I think is nice to use. So I'm just gonna wait a little bit and have a drink. What I also made, which is pretty useful for me when I'm doing timecode programming. You have the encoder link, which if you put in delay times, so if you go fade or delay, you can see over here next to dimmer there's link all. Link all will obviously put, if you have a delay, or if you put a delay in there, 0 for 1, it will put it on everything. Then we have obviously more options. So we have link single active, link feature active, link all active, link filter active. The last two I never used. I'm not using filters that often. So what it does is, if you have single, if we go to position, so we just click single, uh, it will give me a delay only on the attribute, the feature I clicked, I think, yeah, it's called feature. And then second one is single active, which it only allows me to click it when it's active. So if you have like a value on tilt 1, and then you off everything else, so now I can put a delay time in that particular feature. And then we have feature, which means, I think those are features. So if I put it in here, it will put it on all of them. And we have feature active again. So that way, if I have like Gobo active and I put a delay time in here, and I have pen deactivated, I put 1 in here. And then in tilt, let's just use my spikies so you can clearly see it. So if putting that on, that off, mixing color, boom. So if I put a delay in here now with feature active, I'll go 1. So now, because tilt 2 is off, it will only put a delay on pen 2 tilt. And in color, everything is active, but there's no delay applied to it. Then I clear it out again. Fuck that. Then you have a marker to update multiple effects at one time with new layout selections. Yes, I'll be going over that after I explained the link, the encoder link. So obviously, as we can all say, if we're using all, nothing has to be active. I just put in here a number, and then it will be on everything that this fixture has. So obviously we don't have Gobo in my spikies, so there is no delay on Gobo. And then we have all active. Why am I clearing out all the time? So if this is active, if color is active, if focus is active, I put a delay 1 in here. And now, as we can see, only the ones that were active or have a delay applied to that now. Alright, so now to Dan's question, I'm going to read it out again. You have a marker to update multiple effects at one time with new layout selections. My question is, what do you mean with multiple effects? So if you mean you want to store like my symmetrical group 1 in effect 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or multiple lines. Tom van Straten, is this a new Everlights update? No, I think it's Digico. I'm not sure. I haven't figured that out yet. So I'm gonna pull up the way I store my my effects. So first of all, obviously I need to make a symmetrical selection, which you have multiple ways you can do, like a snaky up, down, down, blah blah blah. You can do it the easy way by just selecting from bottom to top, then left to right, the first half of it, and then you go top, bottom, right, left. So you always want to make sure to end up to start on a fixture, and that, so if we start on that fixture over here, that fixture needs to be on the other side, the last one. So we're going from bottom up and then left right. So now we want to select it so we get to that fixture the last. So we're going top to down and then left to right. So now we end up having this fixture as last. So now if we going to put wings of 2, now it's symmetrical. There are multiple ways. You can also do this one. So we went from the bottom inside fixture to the outside and then up, and now we need to get inwards and then downwards, and now we have this kind of selection. Obviously in your effect you can change the direction of it. So that's covering symmetrical selections. So I hope you know how to do them now. So I do my symmetrical selection. Let's do it again. I also have a tester which tests my symmetrical selection. I will be showing that later, maybe. If we get to the donation goal of 10 euros, I'll be showing that macro. So now if I clear it out, the macro just stops. So this way I can check if my symmetrical selection is correct rather than just clicking next. So now I have my symmetrical selection stored in sim1. And then over here I have a macro which just goes group 1049, which then selects that group, and I can store it over here, merge. You obviously want to use override because sometimes data is stored in here and you don't want that, or you want it to override. So now we don't need that. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have those 6 effects. So the first one is my dimmer. I only use one effect for my dimmer per fixture type, because I'll be changing everything in my queue list or in empty sequences with commands. So now I can click my macro. I can name my dim group Keys. It's spelled wrong, but I don't care. So now it sits always on that executor, so it labels the executor, and we can see the template effect change to a selective effect, and then it stores it in my queue list. And I have a tutorial on that as well if you want to go deeper into how to create that stuff. And what the macro does, it just takes my group, store effect 1 point $ effect number, which is effect 9 now, because I wrote that macro once, copy pasted it, and just changed 3 numbers. And then .1 or 0.1, which is the line, and then it automatically takes a new selection. I don't have to deal with remove individuals because I'm not using cloning. I'm just starting over with a clean patch. So I only have my dummy channels. So everything you see from here upwards, above, don't delete, is my current show. Everything I'll delete when I go over to my next show. and then I have my dummy channels, my bitmaps, and then dummy dimmer channels, which I covered in my timecode video. So if you wanna know about dummy channels and why using it, as we can see, everything that is red in here is my dummy channel. I cover that in my timecode video. I think it's a previous, the one before the Capital 2018 build. I have 2 videos up. So that's about how to store my new fixtures or new selection into my effects. I also have the same for my move. So the line looks store effect 1.11.1 plus 1.12 plus 0.1 plus 1.13 dot, and then a wildcard, which it will store the fixtures in every line rather than just defining what line. And if I run that macro, if I pull up the effects, so boom, bit wider. So now you have effect 11 through 15. If I click the macro, it's selective now, and then I can also label it spiky. And now if I'll go over to my positions, it's called spiky. So it will store the effects in here. I hope. Do you have any other questions about that, Dan? Or did that cover what you wanted to know? Or any other questions so far? We've already been streaming for almost an hour. What else do I have interesting in here? Oh yeah. So for the people that are interesting in programming timecode, which then I'm talking about you, I wrote a bunch of macros that saves me a lot of extra time to, for example, if page 201, boom, store Q2 through 10. So with these macros, what I can do is I can change a lot of things inside my queue list. Just Goo9, little off topic, but any more rigging videos in the pipeline? Yes. Flores, if you're watching, I'll be uploading some videos and then you can edit them if you still want to. I still need to finish the La Musica videos. I'll probably upload one today because I still need to download them from my Dropbox, and that takes a lot of time, and then upload it again to YouTube. So that takes about 2 hours per video, and there are I think 3 videos left. And I will be uploading a rigging specific video about festival, which yeah, the name of the festival is Festival. It was in Belgium, and that was the one festival that got cancelled, and I worked my ass off 4 days in the pure heat for nothing, but still get paid anyways. Then I'll have to rewatch and recreate macros are super confusing for me until make them. Yeah, that's a pretty good tip from Dan. Some macros I showed you, you might not understand. Just trying to write them for yourself, and you will understand on the way. We all have to start somewhere, and if you're starting with macros, don't start off with looping macros, blah blah blah. just start off, or the way I worked was I had an idea or a goal to like store my presets in my sequences with a macro. So I set a goal. I always tried to figure out, and then I tried to figure out a way to write a macro that does all that for me in a pretty fast way, without me doing a lot of things. And after a while, I just look at macros again, and then I rewrite it just to make it shorter. Because instead of using 100 lines, why not use looping, blah blah blah. So that's a good way. For some people, I know they aren't using any macros in their show file. That works as well. If you can live without macros, it's good. You don't need macros, so don't sit at your laptop being like, I need to write a macro, because there's no need for a macro if you don't know what it should do. And if you have an idea, like yeah, like for example, what I'm gonna show you now with my timecode macros, I I always like struggled with a lot of doing stuff like going into my queue list, finding a current queue I'm in, putting a fade of 2 in it. That's just annoying. So now I wrote some macros to, first of all, I have to select my executor for it to work, and then I can click my label current queue. So now we're sitting in Q3. Did it work? Yes, it did. So what the macro does is label executor $selected executor. That variable is an internal variable created by MA. So whenever you select a different executor, so as we have here now, we select it. We are in Q1. Haha. So now it always takes the selected executor, and the next one is Q $selected exec queue, which is just the current queue it's sitting in. So if it's in Q3, obviously it will use Q3. And then I just made multiple macros, fade, label current queue. I have that twice. So I can say like a trig go. That work? Yeah. Well, trig time, current queue. I can put a trig time of 10. And now I have a trig time of 10. I can reset it to a go. And now I have a go again. And what it does is assign executor $selected exec q selected exec q, and then slash trig equals go. And then for trig time, it's slash trig time equals, and then the brackets trig time. As you can see, it will ask me that, and then I put in 10, and now I will put exactly in the trig time what I did. And then sometimes I also use mode in my queue list, so a release, for example. So if I click it, the queue list is off. So I have a macro that puts it back on normal. So now, no, it's not, because we weren't in that queue. So normal. So if I'm in Q3, I can say mode release current queue, and now it's off. It's a bit hard to get the normal mode back, because it will always off itself. So yeah. And then what I can also do is, because I use a lot of commands in my main timecode queue list, that is just easy peasy stuff. Go 201.222, so or 210. So now it will just go executor page 201, executor 210. And I didn't like the way of always going in, finding the executor, and then I can say, I can either choose what queue, or I can say current queue, and go 201.205. And now if we go in here, we have that command over here. And then I can also get the command out of here by just clicking. No, enter doesn't work. Or does it? Put in 0. Yeah, deleting it. I still have to find a marker for that. Oh, I just seen my girlfriend donated another €4. I'm almost rich, babe. Thanks for the €4, babe. So, shortcuts. What else do we have? Like going into a little bit more advanced again. Sometimes, or most of the times, when I have fixtures hanging and then I have fixtures on the floor, I want them to pan and tilt the same way when I'm pointing them forward. So if you have fixtures hanging and then fixtures standing on the floor, it will obviously go the opposite direction. And this way I can say, I choose my fixtures that are on the floor, I click invert tilt DMX and invert pan DMX, and now it will go into the fixture selection, or the fixtures that I have selected, and then put it on pan DMX invert and tilt DMX invert. It's a pretty... I had to ask for that macro because I couldn't figure it out, but it's pretty easy. It just stores my current selection in world 999. It overwrites it, then it goes to that. It goes to the world, or it enters the world, active, whatever, and then assign fixture through. So it will activate or select all the fixtures that are stored in there, or that are able to be selected because we're using a world. So that are only the fixtures that I had selected, and then assign fixture through slash pan DMX invert equals on, and then it goes back to world 1. And then if I wanted to off it, it's just the same macro again, and instead of on I just use off. So that's just an easy way, rather than going into my setup, finding the fixtures that I'm using or that needs a invert. I'll just select them, and then I can choose invert pan DMX or invert pan DMX off, tilt DMX or tilt DMX off. That's just a good way to saving a lot of time. And then I have the same for my encoders. So if you invert your encoders, rather than the fixture going, if I put it up, and if I put my encoder up, it will just go the opposite direction. So if you have, if you want, for example, I'm never using it, but if you want your left side and your right side to, whenever you put something in pen or use your pen encoder, you want them to always go inwards or outwards. You just select your right half or the other half, left or right, whatever, and then just invert pen encoder. So my right side will just invert the encoder. I hope that makes sense. I kind of suck at explaining sometimes. Alright, also, I wrote myself a marker because I was sick and tired of, if I'll go in here, where is it? Sequence. Because I got my, where are they? Oh, there. So I have like 12 sequences that are labeled the same way: white, red, blue, blah blah blah. And sometimes I also use dummy sequences with a command that are labeled white, red. For example, that one. If I pull it up, I get that information. And it really bothered me to just label everything again. I mean, now I figured out that I just create one and copy paste it, and then restore what's in there, or if there's even something in there. But I wrote myself label cues color macro, which selects which pulls up the select command, and then I can choose what executor, and then it just labels it. So if we have 16 store q1 through 16, boom. So now it's not labeled. Now it is. It's all the magic. It's pretty easy macro, and it's a time saver, because going in here, choosing white, putting it white, then doing 16 of those really sucks. I mean, first of all, you have to write the macro, which takes a little bit of time, but it will save you a lot of time afterwards. So yeah, whenever I'm doing things that I have to do over and over again, I'm trying to find the macro for that too, so it saves me time. Then I've always had problems that way with effects not understanding what's been flipped. So I invert the actual fixture profile in tilt and pan. Do you have this same issue? No, I don't have it. Can you explain exactly what your problem is? Or I just read it again. I've always had problems that way with effects not understanding what's been flipped. So I invert. I think I know what you mean. If you use encoders, that won't be affecting your effects. It's just for the encoder, which you can clearly see in the name. If you use invert DMX, it will invert the DMX. So if the DMX value, I don't know, 100, it will just put it to, or if you have like, it sucks to explain. It will just, if you pull it up, it just goes to the if you put in plus, it will just go to minus. I think that makes sense. I hope that makes sense, because that is some garbage explaining. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. So if you're trying to create like a circle effect with fixtures that are hanging and fixtures that are standing, what you have to do is you take your fixtures on the floor. They obviously need to have be on the stage in the right direction, so the display is in front. If they're standing, you should see the display from the front of house, and if they're hanging, you should see the display from the front of house. And if you look at it from behind, you should see the cables on up and down. And then what you do is you select the fixtures that are on the floor, you invert the tilt first, and then you go in here, you take your fixtures that are hanging, you put position 90 on it, which it hopefully should face the crowd, or that's just how I work. And then you take the fixtures on the floor, and then you put in minus 90. So now they all, if we look into the stage, yes, they work. It's probably not shown in MA, or is it? No, it's not. So in MA3D you won't be seeing that if you invert stuff. So that's a bit of a shame. But there are different ways to like get rid of that. But it's not gonna explain that today. So now just imagine all your fixtures, LED beam, are facing to the front. If you want to try to check if everything is set correct, you go, you take the tilt and pull it up or down, and then they should all go the same direction. And then you do the same with pen. If they go all to the left, then you're good. If up goes to the left and down goes to the right, you invert the pen. And then if you take them into an effect and you have them 90 degrees pointed into the crowd, then it will look like they're all going in the same direction. So yeah, that took me also a little while to figure that out. But keep in mind, in Grand MA you won't be, those options aren't seen, because it will only change the output of it, and I think that doesn't work for MA3D. So yeah. Right. What else do I have in here? Which is pretty easy one. Pan encoder and tilt encoder should fix it in 3D. Nope, it doesn't. It works for doing your precisions, but not if you use an effect, because the effect won't affect the encoders, or the encoders won't be affected by the effect, whatever. Or rotate the fixture in 3D. Nope, that also doesn't work, I think. Or maybe it does. I'm not sure. Never did that. That could work. What I do is I just change on the fixtures that are on the floor. I just change the fixture profile. I make a second fixture profile, and I put my how are the values called? From to, I think. Spiky, edit, edit row. So I either change one of those lines, the from to blah blah blah, or from physics to physics, whatever. I'm not sure how I did it, but it's just a little bit of playing around. Not effect, but MF3D. Yeah, but if you use encoder, so if you want to try to pre-program a show in MA3D, that's gonna be a pain in the ass, because you won't be seeing the invert DMX stuff. So yeah, that's also a big issue I have with MA3D. I mean, it's nice to play around with it, but if you're actually trying to pre-program a real live show and you don't have a lot of time to update stuff during the show or before the show, then rent a visualizer or buy a visualizer. I'd highly recommend to look into Deepends 2 or L8. Those are I think the leading visualizers now. Visivik is nice because it's a overall package and has everything, but yeah, it lacks in performance pretty bad, and it doesn't look that great. That's the way I do it. To fix the effects also from 2 is the way. Yeah, if you work in MA3D and whatever works, then it's good. But make sure to change it back once you go to a real live show. Or if you only changed like the 3D position where it goes to, or the travel, then you don't have to change that. But yeah, always comes down to if it works or not. If it's stupid and it works, it's not stupid. That's what I say. So let's take a look at my instance generator. I'm a big fan of the Robin Psych FX8. So it's I can pull that up. Let me find the fixture first. Just so you know what I'm talking about. Alright, so it's this kind of fixture. It's tilt strip with 8 LED cells in it. If you have it on full control, you have like 9 instances. So you have an instance for your base, so that will control the dimmer. So if the base is on 0, you can have 100% output on the LEDs. You won't be seeing it. And you can also control the tilt on the base, and then you have your different LED cells, and you can control every LED cell of it, acting like an extra fixture. And to work with that, you always need to like kind of get the instances apart from each other. So if you have one fixture, it's pretty easy, you just next through. But if you have like 20 fixtures of those, it's hard. So I made an instance generator, which I'm gonna show how it works. PsychFX. PsychFX. So as you can see over here, you have instances. It's 9. Yeah, that's that. No, I'm gonna use that. So I import it. I take 10 fixtures. Blah 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 blah. None. Channel ID 201. Alright, fine. Channel ID 11. Fine. 001. Yes. So now as you can see in the fixture ID, you have a .1. So that means you have more instances. So now we're going to take those fixture 10001, was it? No, that's too much. So 1 through, yeah, it won't be that much. So now if we zoom out, we have all those fixture thingies. And if we take a range camera front, boom, now they're sitting. Where did we store them? Oh yeah, that's garbage. And those are my... Alright. So now as we can see, you have the base of it, and then you have your LED cells in it, and I always try to find a nice way to separate them from each other, just to deal a little bit easier with it, because if you highlight it, you just go in a pretty strange way. So now what I do is assign instance over here. So now I click my macro, it asks me for my group destination, which should be a destination that is empty for 9 spaces, because we need 9. So I put 1449, and then my source group is 1430, so that's a group where I have them stored in. And now it asks me for how many instances it has. You can check that in the setup, how many it has, or if you know how many, or if you're not sure, you just put like, so it has 9 instances, but you can also put in 10. And now we end up with 1 empty. And now we have like my master, or my base, then number 1, number 2, number 5, number 6, no, what the fuck, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's a pretty nice way to deal with those fixtures, and the marker looks like that. So it starts off with setting a variable instance equals 1. So that's, I think, yeah, that's the counting one. Then it sets another variable group count. That's my group destination. And it sets another variable instance group, which is my source group. Then another variable instance count is how many instances I have. And then what it does is just fixture wildcard dot $ instances, or dot instance, if group instance group, and then store group count, and then it adds a variable to it, and then it just loops itself all the time, or just 9 or 10 times. And that's basically all the magic behind that. And it works pretty easy for me. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go to come to an end. You guys want to see the symmetrical tester I showed you in the beginning, which is this one. It's like just a handy tool to check if your symmetrical selection is correct. And then once it loops itself 2 times, and once it's done, it will go back to all selected. And if it was correct, you can store it in your symmetrical group merge. And now we stored it as a symmetrical selection. Goo9. I have been looking at L8 since yesterday. Haha, 80 years. Me too. Friend of mine, Amia, I already mentioned him in my videos. He uses L8, and I think he also distributes it and sells it. And I am pretty amazed on how good the quality of that is, and he does amazing stuff with it. But my biggest problem, or the only reason, or the biggest reason why I'm only using VisiVig, is because I don't need an actual console to output something. Because in VisiVig you can just create 200 universes and still output it. You don't need any NPUs, you don't need a console to get your parameters. Yeah. So yeah, VisiVig, it will be VisiVig as long as other visualizers make it possible, or MA makes it possible to use other visualizers without fucking buying NPUs or a console. Because if I want to just fuck around with a software, I need to rent a console and probably some NPUs to output something that is just for fun. And also, if I want to pre-program a show in an airplane, which is possible, I need to take my console. So, nah, fuck that. I'm gonna stick with VisiVig till all this changes. I mean, I don't want to put too much shit on VisiVig because the cat based version of it is pretty good. And I draw all my stages, or everything on my stage, in VisiVig itself, and it works. But yeah, if I use it as a visualizer and I have a stage that is way too big, I can't even do stuff. Like when the lockdown started in Austria, I rebuilt Electric Love 2019, which is a huge ass stage with huge ass scaffolding and decoration parts and everything. And I wanted to build it to do a nice timecode show to it afterwards, but I couldn't even move my mouse smoothly. I think MA3 is going to be only Vectorworks. There was a petition going around to enable output for all visualizers, and MA quoted, I think, that they're going to do that for, or they're working on it for MA3, but not MA2, and I'm not gonna use MA3 for a very long time because I don't like it. Bring back the old effects and we can talk about it. But yeah, the first time I started MA3, it just felt like a complete different console. I mean, they have some good new features, like the way they deal with groups now or fixtures is pretty nice to create nice effects. But I just don't like the phaser effects, and the way I work with my show file live for 12 hours mostly, that wouldn't work in MA3 so far. Because I change my effect lines through my sequences, so I can change the direction, my groups, blocks, wings, rate, width, whatever I want to change, I have, and that wouldn't work with phasers. So, or so far. So I'll just stay away from MA3 till it's a good software. And I've spoken to many operators in the same business, in the same industry as I am in, with EDM and hardstyle stages. So that's a lot of busking for 10 to 12 hours. And already the huge disadvantage with getting rid of 4X buttons. That is just shit. I need them. So yeah, I'm just gonna wait it out and see where it goes. But yeah, I'm gonna end the stream now. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks to my girlfriend for donating €4. I'm gonna buy probably a kebab from it now because I'm hungry. So I'm able to buy some food now. Thank you. And cheers for everyone to tune in. I hope it covered most of it. I mean, I like jumping from beginner to advanced pretty quick and then back and forth. But yeah, I hope this was a good stream for you guys. If you want to see something else, in the future, just shoot me a message on Facebook or put it in the chat, and then we can figure out what I can do next. On Sunday, I will be finishing my VisiVig build for Capital 2018. I'm trying to, yeah, I'm gonna post a link for that maybe today, and then gonna be a pretty quick stream probably because the stage is almost finished. And then I keep VisiVig Sunday alive, and maybe I email Depends too to get like a demo version of it, and maybe thinking about buying it, and then do some tutorial videos about that. So yeah, that's for the future. See you next time. Thanks guys for tuning in, and till next time. Bye bye.